And hello, movie lovers, and welcome to the show. So I have my good friend from the Sleevie G Show, aka Gomez from the Sleevie G Show, and I just want to say it's an honor and a privilege to be able to have him on here. We're going to be doing the Shawshank Redemption review. So with further ado, let's welcome Gomez. Let's welcome the Sleevie G Show to Movie Lovers Tonight, and let's do it. Hey, what's up, Gomez?
What's going on, John? How you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing fantastic, man. Either you have to get, here's the thing: you either have to get busy living, or you have to get busy dying. So, I'd rather get busy living.
Yeah, same here, but if I gotta get busy dying, at least I know I'm sleeping good.
Exactly.
Such a bad joke.
It definitely is. But you know what, man? It's a privilege to have you here. We've done a lot of collaborations between us since since we actually did Playlist Wars. I was on your show a couple of months back. But just tell everybody a little bit about the Sleevie G Show, and then after that we'll get into breaking down the Shawshank Redemption.
So Sleevie G Show, it's a fun-loving show, man. All I do is get guests on the show. Let's just talk, ask a couple of questions, and just let the guests talk. Celebrate them, what they do. Actually, we had you on that's being released on May 30th. We talked about 80s TV shows. So it was totally fun, totally great time. And one thing I love about what I do is just that I make people feel great and they talk. It's just not all about one thing. It's about, I had 3 New Jersey celebrities come on. I've had Jason Whistle from Canada. It's Not That Bad podcast. Brian Colburn, my weekly playlist, aka Playlist Wars, my partner on that one. I had you, John. I had so many great guests on this show. Actually, I had a couple of friends who did with mental health, autism, and I got a friend of mine who works for a fit club in Verona, Alpha Fit Club, Steve Diaz. And he's making a run for No Limits Cafe, donating to him. You know what I mean? So I'm doing a couple of great things. I got some collaborations going on. It's been a hell of a ride. I do my blogs too on sleeviegpodcasts.com. It found everywhere, man. YouTube, Good Pod, Spotify, iHeartRadio, everywhere, man. Just having a great time. It's been a ball.
All right. Well, without further ado, let's break this thing in. So this actually starts out in 1947. Andy Dufresne, Tim Robinson's character at banker in Maine, is convicted of murdering his wife and her lover, a golf pro. He is given 2 life sentences and sent to the notoriously harsh Shawshank prison. Andy always claims his innocence, but his cold and measured demeanor led many to doubt his word. Also, to this, I want to just point this out. He is given 2 life sentences that he sentenced back to back. That's also another thing I wanted to point out.
Mm-hmm.
But during the first night, the chief guard, Brian Hartley, Clancy Brown, savagely beats a newly arrived inmate because of his crying and hysterics. The inmate later dies in the infirmary because the prison doctor had left for the night. So that's where we're going to camp out a little bit for these 2 scenes. So what do you think about the fact that, you have Tim Robbins in this movie as Andy Dufresne? He's sitting in his car. You're not sure where this scene is going to go because he has the gun in his hand. Next thing you know, it goes into the whole entire court and is breaking it down to this guy killed his wife on outrage of the fact that his wife was cheating on him with a pro golfer. And I like the little mystery element into it is like, okay, did he do it? Did he not do it? He's not sure as well because he's also been drinking that night.
Mm-hmm.
So his mind is totally blanked as well. He's like, well, maybe I did do it. Maybe I don't remember anything else because my rage that was inside of me made me forget everything around me. But what about you though?
So when I saw the movie originally and I was watching that scene, him playing, drinking what looked like a bottle of whiskey or bourbon, same difference, doesn't really matter. But, the gun in his hand when he's pulling the bullets in, you could tell he was pissed. One thing I noticed was, he drops a bunch of bullets and the bottle of bourbon right there, okay? Did he kill his wife in the golf pro or did he not? That's the question that still begs to differ because in court in that scene, he said he threw his gun into the river.
Mhm.
Okay. And the lawyer or the defense lawyer said, well, we combed that river and we couldn't find a gun. So you're telling me you've really dug into the mud and looked for the gun, which you probably did not. And at that time, maybe didn't have, what we have today with technology. Don't get me wrong. You're talking about 1947 compared to 2023 of what we have here. But you're right. There is a little bit of a mystery. Did he kill the two? And then but there was one thing that I think where I thought he was innocent was that extra bullet for each of his lover. So that means he had which kind of still bothers me a little bit in the beginning of the movie was they never said that they had the bullets inside the house. So
Or it was left inside the victims either.
yeah. So he shot the revolver and there were 7 bullets. 5 shots plus he had to reload the gun. So you're telling me he kept all the bullets? If he was that dead drunk, he ain't picking up bullets.
No, he's not. He's going to be staggering all over everything. That also goes to show you how dense the court was actually during the 1947, where it's like, well, we got the gun, we got the shells in a sense, but we don't have the other stuff to show exclusive evidence.
Well, the other problem is they don't have the gun.
Right.
So what happened to the gun? The mysterious gun, he said he threw it in the river. They couldn't find it. Fine, but yeah, I think that whole court system at 1947 was completely bull. So I think that the guy, right there, the case should have been on a continuance, not going on, or should have been dismissed right at that point because of the lack of evidence. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's me again. I'm no lawyer either, but I watch enough TV. I watch enough court TV these days that to realize the lack of evidence that he should have been released.
But it just goes to show you how naive the court system was. It's like, well, you have a guy who's drunk. He had a gun. He threw it in the river. If he's innocent, then why would he throw it in the river to begin with?
Correct.
And so that's where they're looking at, though, too, is that part of it as well.
And it's kind of funny, like the judge is about to render his sentence, and he said, Mr. Dufresne, I find you cold. Well, of course you're going to find him cold because you're freaking blaming him for double murder. I would be cold too and scared out of my mind.
Right, exactly. Does it look like I would be happy standing there in front of everybody, swearing an oath to a murder that I may or may have not committed?
Yeah, hold on. Hey, Judge, yeah, I killed him. There you go.
I'm just happy to be here, Judge. Yeah. Just do what you will to me. I don't care.
I would be cold in remorse myself.
Right.
Because you're trying to figure out in your head, I'm going to jail until I'm dead. I'm never going to get paroled. So what the hell?
Right.
So
yeah. But now, here's the thing that I really liked was the introduction into the Shawshank prison itself. Because it's not just a prison to me; it's a character in itself.
Oh yeah.
Look at the landscape and the wide shots of that prison.
That was so cinematically done perfectly, because you're right. Shawshank Prison was its own character because it's a hidden piece. That's one thing I loved about that. When the bus is coming in, the orchestra playing that song, it just played so well. And then all the inmates coming, reel them in, fresh fish. And if you don't know what fresh fish means in jail terms, means those are the virgins, like when we come out of our mothers. They haven't been touched yet. So they're kind of seeing who wins. Reds guys come up, they're like, hey, you taking any bets? Yeah. I think it was Smokes.
2 packs of cigarettes.
No, it was either Smokes or something else. I forgot what
it was Smokes. It was cigarettes.
Smokes. Okay. Yeah. Like put me down for a quarter deck, and what was the one guy's name? Red. Yeah. He goes, put me for a quarter deck on the chubby right, fat guy in the end right there, second into the right. And not Red, I forgot his character's name, but Red, Morgan Freeman's character, goes, no, I'm going to go with that tall drink of water at the end. And then everyone was betting. And you know what? That's a bet you lose big time because Andy didn't crack.
Right, because Red is the one who ends up putting money down on Andy to actually break. Andy didn't break. It cost him 2 packs of cigarettes that night.
Yep.
And somebody put some money on the pig because he's going to be the first one to oink during the night.
Yep. And they went through the inside. They meet the warden and Hadley that night right there. And it's an interesting system because of what did they do at 1947 at that time. They hold a line up and then they get pretty much naked. Mm-hmm. And one of the wardens said, "You'll get two things out of here at Shawshank. You're going to get your rules, and you're going to have God. Everything else is your ass belongs to me."
Yep.
And that's true. Everyone's ass belonged to him because he ran that thing tight.
He did. He ran a tight ship. Not only that, but even the prisoners also ran it too. So not only are you getting the main person in charge, you're also getting your ass in charge with the prisoners as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, the guards run it, but at the same time, the prisoners also run it just as much as the cops do too.
Well, what I love about this movie though is Morgan Freeman is talking over while they're doing the delousing stages and cleaning them up and throwing the delouse, and they're walking them in the jail butt naked into their cells. So I mean, I think they did that so perfectly, like Morgan Freeman's voice. You know what I mean?
I think so too.
And then everyone's sitting there, and here's people like fresh fish. Come on. And the one guy goes, "Hey, lard ass, I got some people who love to make your acquaintance and press on that smushy butt of yours." And there he broke. And everyone
he was already scared as is, but that's whenever after the lights go out.
Yep.
And the cell is quiet. And then the prisoners are trying to break them to where they're trying to get their weakness, and that's exactly what happens to that guy.
Well, I think his chubby fat guy was right in the middle of freaking Central. Andy Dufresne was on the third floor on the corner, so no one's gonna bother that guy. That it was not poorly done. It was poorly done, direct wise, but strategically for him not to break was perfect for him.
Right.
You know what I mean? I think if Andy was in the middle somewhere and hearing that, I think he could have broken. But we'll never know that answer.
Right. But considering the fact that you have the weakest person at the bottom jail where they can just yank them out of there was actually perfect.
Yeah.
Because think of it like this. Someone breaks, and let's say they're on the second floor of that prison. It's going to take them a while to get to you. With the guards, with the first floor, you can grab the weakest person and just do whatever you want with them. Just yank them out of the jail cell and drag them out.
Oh, without a doubt. So, I mean, they think they're living crap out of the guy, too, with a nightstick and feet.
Exactly. But another thing, though, that I really liked was the Morgan Freeman dialogue about how, they drag you out onto the thing naked as a jaybird on your birthday. That was actually one of the quotes that he winds up saying.
Yeah.
And, I thought the cinematography within the jail cell itself with that actually shows you the real life and the realism of what goes on in those prison walls.
And, and again, and this is 1947, not 2023. So prison life is totally different. You know what I mean? Their walls were made of these cheap ass concrete too.
Right.
But we'll get into later on that one.
Yeah, we'll get into that. But I like how Morgan Freeman goes that because Andy didn't break, he ended up costing me 2 packs of cigarettes.
Yeah. That's a lot in jail.
Yep.
It's like peanut butter.
Exactly. So now we're going to go into a month later. Andy approaches Red, who runs a contraband inside the walls of Shawshank. Mm-hmm. He asks Red to find him a rock hammer, an instrument he claims is necessary for this hobby of rock collecting and sculpting. Though other prisoners consider Andy a really cold fish, Red sees something in Andy and he likes him from the start. Red believes Andy intends to use the hammer to engineer his escape in the future, but when the tool arrives, he sees how small it is. Red puts aside the thought that Andy could ever use it to dig his way out of prison.
The infamous rock hammer, yes. So that scene as he meets Red, Andy meets Red for the first time a month into prison. One of the lines he goes, the wife killing banker. Everyone says you're a cold fish, but Boggs has a liking to you. And maybe I should tell him that I'm not really gay. And it goes, it don't matter here.
Matter.
It
Neither
don't
are they.
Neither do they. So, little scary thing in prison. Yes, that does happen in real life. And the funny thing is that, as they're talking, and he goes, I heard you're the man that can get certain things. Yeah, I'm known to get certain things from time to time. And that's when he explains about the rock hammer. He goes, oh, and probably you want to stick that rock hammer in somebody's head, aka aiming it at Boggs. You know what I mean? He's like,
Right.
he goes, you'll get it when you see it because it's not this big, not that big. And then he starts talking about how much he's going to quote him, which is kind of funny. Now, 1947, to get $10 out of a prison, I'm going, that's a lot of money.
That is a lot of money.
Okay, $10 now is nothing in a prison, but you're working maybe pennies at a time, 10 cents a day, 10 cents a couple of hours to get $10. It's like, what does he say? The higher the quality of the item, higher the price goes. So, he asked him where he gets any kind of rock and gem shop. And, he said, and one thing that Andy said, he goes, I used to be a rock hound, like quartz, lime. And he says this, he goes, I used to do this outside of my life. I would like to do it in my inside life now. So now he's just closed the chapter of what his life was after now. And he's starting his jail chapter life. And he goes, I remember he said, he goes, how big is this? He goes, you'll see. I'm not breaking out of jail with this damn thing. Hey, John, I can't hear you.
But yeah, even he says that I can get you anything that you want.
Yeah.
But if it involves murdering somebody with this rock hammer, then I don't want no part of it. Mm-hmm. And if you get caught with it, because I run contraband here, you never heard of me. I never heard of you. Yep. And you're going to go your way, I'll go my way kind of thing. And that's it. I won't do business with you anymore. And then Andy goes, trust me, it's nothing that you're going to have to worry about.
Right. And because it was so small.
Right. Even when Andy gives him the dimensions of how small it is, and there's a difference between telling somebody how small something is versus how big something is once you actually look in the context of it whenever you receive something.
Exactly.
So whenever I like how Brooks is over there, I like how the system is run by Red, where first we wind up seeing it being snuck into the prison with the Lennons, and then it goes from the Lennons over to Brooks, and Brooks
wasn't Brooks. It wasn't Brooks. It was another guy. It was not Brooks. It was another guy. It went from the trucker guy who brings in the linens. Yeah. He threw it to one of the other guys saying, here's your shit. Excuse my language. Here's your stuff.
No, you're good.
He threw it on him, and then he packed it in Red's linens and his bed stuff. And he's like, Red. And he goes, he puts down a pack of cigarettes. Here you go, man. It wasn't Brooks. Brooks Hadley was the librarian. So Brooks was in that scene when they're in the talking, when they were talking about the guy died, because he was asking about Andy's worm. Could he feed his crow that worm? I remember that much. It wasn't Brooks Hadley. Brooks Hadley was the librarian. I forgot the name of the jet.
But Brooks also had it's not Andy the book though. That had
yes.
Yeah, because it went through three different people. It went through the person who had brought the linens, and then the person who actually had the blankets, and then it went to Brooks.
Now, my question is this. It's kind of funny. Morgan Freeman's character, how many freaking packs of cigarettes does this guy have? Because he was giving packs out like if it was nothing.
And the funny thing is, he's the one who lost because of Andy, because Andy made him lose 2 packs of cigarettes. But this guy has like a backstage pass to cigarettes, like it's going out of style.
He
must have another. Right.
Yeah, he gives a half a pack to Brooks. He gives 2 packs to the guy who gives him the linen. You know, it's like, dude, like seriously, how many packs of cigarettes do you have under your bunk? And you don't smoke. He doesn't even smoke throughout the show movie.
No, he doesn't. He just uses it as a hustle, though, a side hustle to get prisoners whatever they want, so that way he can operate his contraband.
Yeah,
and that's what I like about him, though, is he knows how to get stuff in and knows how to work the system to get what he wants and also get what the prisoners want too. So not only does it benefit him, it also benefits the prisoners too. And he has this whole entire system worked out to a T.
He does, and that's why he's smart.
So then we also have, during the first 2 years of his incarnation, Andy works in the prison laundry. He attacks attention from the sisters, a group of prisoners who sexually assault other prisoners. Though he persistently resists and fights them, Andy is beaten. And even though it doesn't show it, but we all also know what winds up happening to Andy whenever he's beaten on a regular basis.
So poor Andy. When I think the first time is when he was changing the movie reel. He actually goes to see Red before that. He sees Red.
That was the second. Second.
Was it the second one?
Yeah, the first time.
Oh no, the first was he was in the laundry. You're right. He went to go get the he went to go get the soap. Sorry, and then he's like, he fought back pretty quickly, and they have him on his. I think was it his in his arms? Yeah, and it was just weird. Like you know what I mean? Andy just goes into a tantrum, and it scares the crap out of them because you never see Boggs like get scared all of a sudden. He beats the crap out of Andy. He was in He was in the infirmary for a month. I think Red said.
Yeah, he was in the infirmary for at least 2 or 3 months, but that was on the second attempt. The first attempt, nothing really happened to him or anything like that.
It was just like a little beatdown.
Yeah, it was a beatdown and a shakedown because remember, the sisters were trying to make moves on Andy inside the shower.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, okay, you're playing hard to get. I like that. Okay.
Yeah, now I remember. Yeah.
And so that was actually just basically Andy just walking away from them. And then that just antagonized them even more to where they're like, okay, we're going to get you whenever you least expect it, which happens to be the laundry room.
Yeah.
And then he steps out behind the laundry room to get something. And then that's when the sisters start attacking him.
Right. And that's where he said, if you get this in your eyes, because he opened up the lid where the soap was, he said, if this gets in your eyes, you're going to go totally blind.
Right. And then somebody snuck up behind him, and then that's when they started beating the crap out of him. And then that's when Red, the monologue from Morgan Freeman, comes in and goes, I wish I could tell you that Andy fought the good fight that day. Yeah. But it's prison, and there's no good days in prison.
And I think Boggs was in the hole for like a week. He's like, all right. He goes, all right, Boggs, you're done.
Then Red pulls some strings and gets Andy and a few of their mutual friends a break by getting them all on a work detail, tearing the roof off of one of the prison's buildings. During the job, Andy overhears Hadley complaining about having to pay taxes for an oncoming inheritance, which is $35,000, drawing on his expertise as a banker. Andy lets Hartley know that he can shelter his money from the IRS, turning it into a one-time gift for his wife. He says he'll assist in exchange for some cold beers for his fellow inmates while on the tearing job. Then, though he at the first threatens to throw Andy off the roof, Hadley, the most brutal guard in the prison, agrees, providing the men with cold beer before the job is finished. Red remarks that Andy may have engineered the privilege to build favor with the prison guards as much as with the fellow inmates, but Red also thinks Andy did it simply to feel free.
Great. That was a great scene. That whole scene right there. So, Norton, Ward Norton, the Warden Norton. Could say that twice, and I could.
Right.
So the Warden Norton, who is the warden of Shawshank, is like, hey, the factory and the roof on the license plate roof needs retarring. And I hear Red going, May, what a fine time to be outside and doing something. It's a perfect time.
Right, exactly.
Not too hot, not too cold. And
But also,
yes,
too, it's also a perfect time for Andy because of the fact he doesn't have to deal with the sisters at
yeah,
that point either. So it cuts him a break because that's what I think why Andy also did it too.
mhm.
He's like, look, I'm getting my ass beat into me every single day that I turn around because of the sisters.
Yeah.
So I need a break here. So he decides, okay, well, I'm going to get Red over here. I'm going to get all these other guys, and we're going to do the tarring of the roof, which is
So,
actually perfect.
it is perfect. So, you hear the times like, oh, my brother died and he left me 40 grand. He's like, dollars? No. Dude, he left me pesos, you moron. Of course, $40,000. And of course, Andy Dufresne hears it, oh, I gotta pay this, I gotta pay taxes on that, I gotta take the kids. He's complaining about his whole family except for himself. But Andy hears it, it's like, hey, listen, I could help you with this. The question goes, Mr. Hadley, do you love your wife? What you say? You're that bank wife killer, aren't you? It's like, do you think what I mean is, do you think your wife will ever cheat on you? Watch out, this man's about to have an accident. You know what I mean? And then that's where he's hanging and he's explaining why. And the thing is, like, oh, you can get a banker, but it's going to cost you money. But if you can get the papers, I can do it for free. The only thing I'll ask is three suds for each one of my coworkers. And the one guy goes, hear this, coworkers. You know what? I understand why he said that, because he feels like he's working.
Right.
But
it doesn't feel like he's in prison. It actually makes him feel like he's part of his activity of tearing down a roof. Right. You're with a bunch of guys. You're joking around. Yeah, you're up there with the guards, but at the same time, you have some normalization for just a little bit,
So, and I remember Red's monologue is like he says, he goes, the day before the last day of tarring the roof of the factory, Hadley brought up beers, and you hear Hadley goes, drink it while it's cold, ladies. And he goes, that Colossus prick Hadley actually sounded human.
Right.
You know what I mean? It was the one time you ever hear him sound like that, because the crew was working their asses off to getting that thing done. And to get those beers for them in the tar buckets, by the way, cold. You know what I mean? And the guards are drinking beers too.
Right.
Everyone's drinking.
It actually feels like that they're working for a supervisor on the roof, and
right.
Your supervisor just talking shit.
Mm-hmm.
Hurry up, ladies! We need to get this done before the day is out. Basically, yeah. So yeah, you have some normalization, but I also like how one of the characters look over to Red. He goes, "Look, we're over here drinking Andy's beers, and he's not even able to enjoy it." So. Right. And you see the smirk on Andy's face, this smile on his face, just enjoying the fact that, that for one little moment, a piece for him to feel normal meant a lot more than beer.
Yeah.
And I like how the character goes over to me. He goes, hey, Andy, here's your beer. He goes, nah, man, I'm good. He goes, I stopped drinking.
Just enjoy it.
Drink. Just enjoy it.
And that's something I respect Andy for doing that. You know what I mean? And I think that's where you see the guy starting to like Andy for who he really is. He's not a con artist. He's not a bullshitter. He's straightforward. He's going to tell you how it is.
Exactly. And then I like also too how Morgan Freeman's monologue comes in. He goes, maybe Andy wanted to feel normal for the day, or maybe because he just I forgot the rest of the dialogue.
He was talking about, maybe he'll, maybe the guards will owe him a favor one day, or maybe Andy just felt like he could be free for a day. You know what I mean? So it was just trying to speculate, why did Andy do it?
Exactly. But I think it was just for him to feel normal. I don't think it was to do this whole entire thing of, oh, I can get in good with these guards and I can handle their taxes later on. He just did it just to help him out because he has an ear for that.
Yeah.
Even though he came across the prison guard is like, so how much do you love your wife, buddy? What? Mm-hmm. What the fuck are you talking about?
It's funny. Yeah, you're right. And it's one of those things. So, again, just one of my favorite scenes in that movie, though. I will say that. One of them.
Right. So, now we're getting over to Warden Samuel Norton, which is played by Bob Gutton. He hears about how Andy helped Haley and uses a surprise cell inspection to size Andy up, basically. The warden meets with Andy and sends him to work with with aging inmate Brooke Headland, played by James Whitmore, in the prison library, where he sets up a makeshift desk to provide his service to other guards, and the warden himself with income tax returns and other financial advice, and sees an opportunity to expand the prison library. He starts by asking the Maine State Senate for funds. He writes letters every week. His financial support practice is so appreciated that even guards from other prisons, when they visit for interior prison baseball matches, seek Andy's financial advice. Andy prepares Norton's tax returns the next season.
So at those scenes with him going through tax season, that was a pretty important part, because the surprise inspection. What's kind of funny is that in the movie you don't realize what's in the Bible. It doesn't open the Bible. We'll talk about that a little bit too. And I remember Norton goes, I heard you're good with numbers. He goes, yeah. As Hadley's looking around, and he asked about the the bright pads and scotch and smoothing pads, and I was like, oh, it's for shaping rocks, a little hobby I have. You know what I mean? So they're like, oh, okay, And then of course there's a poster of a half naked woman, and Warden's like,
I don't really approve of this.
I don't really approve of this, but I'll let it go. So you can tell he believes in the Lord. He believes in his faith. That's one thing. I'll give Warden Norton a little credit on that. And it's kind of funny, like you said. So I heard you're good with numbers too. He's like, yep. And, got him out of the laundry. You know what I mean? Then he goes to Brooks, as is his assistant in the library, which is a little shit box in the freaking prison cell. You know what I mean? Like, it's so small. It's like you're surprised how small it is. And Hallie comes with one of the guards and is saying, I want to set up some kind of trust fund for my kids for college. And that's how it started. You know what I mean? And then he started talking. It's like they're eating lunch, and one of the guys goes, I swear to God, he asked him if he wanted to go to Harvard or Yale. That was one of those funny scenes. But yeah, then all the, Andy's giving the other officers from other prisons, when it came to tax season, he was allowed his staff. You know what I mean? So Red was part of that staff. A lot of his friends were part of that staff. And it was like, I remember one of the prisoners goes, yeah, I had to buy the damn holster too. He goes, see, that's tax deductible. You know what I mean? So,
right.
And you see all these guys, the cops, and you see Norton doing his taxes. But Norton was sizing him up, just like Morgan Freeman's character said in that little monologue. Norton is sizing up Andy for something bigger.
Right. And also, too, the Bible scriptures that they use for this, where he goes, so what scripture do you like out of it? What's your favorite chapter?
Yes.
And Andy goes, watch ye therefore, for ye know not when the masters of the house cometh. And Warden Samuel responds with Mark 13:35. He goes, nice, but mine is Mark 13:35. I've always liked that one, but I prefer, I am the light of the world. He that followeth me shall not walk in the darkness, but shall have the light of life. Mm-hmm. And to me, this actually just shows the ignorance of the warden, because the fact he thinks of himself as the light shining into the darkness of that prison cell. And he can do whatever he wants because he thinks that he is the light. He thinks he is the higher anarchy, the high power of that prison to do whatever the hell he wants.
Mm-hmm. And so fear, because he is the warden.
Right.
And you got Hadley as the right-hand man.
Right.
So, I mean, I would definitely believe that too. You know what I mean? It's just, that's how prison is.
Right. But I also liked how, like you said, the Bible is not even opened. And and Andy knew how to play it to a T because of the fact that he's like, okay, I'm going to memorize a scripture that I know that he'll take the bait on.
Yeah.
And therefore, there's no reason to even search my Bible or anything like that.
You do see Andy's eyes. If you guys pay attention, like, to certain details of a movie, like sometimes I do, the expression is when you see his eyes bug out when he took the Bible. When he picked up the Bible, it's like, oh, I'm glad to see you're using this. Andy Dufresne's eyes were like, oh, shit. Like, he just took my Bible. There's my rock hammer. You know what I mean? Because he couldn't find it.
I need to go back and rewatch that again because I was trying to look at little small details here and there, even though I know of the plot twists and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I was always trying to notice something different whenever I rewatch a movie that has a twist. So I never noticed that little small detail.
His like he like you not it's subtle because you really don't see it, but a guy who like me who looks at it, you're like, oh, like he gave like that face, like, oh shit, he took my Bible. And as he
Right.
was closing it, he says, "Oh, I don't want to deprive you of this." And as the cell closes, he gives it back to Andy. So there's a little respect factor that Andy does read the Bible probably, or he has read it several times. But that's like that book is a key part of the whole movie too.
Right. And then I lost I thought it was actually funny about him doing taxes for the prison guards and then doing taxes for the warden because now you're seeing perspective outside the prison gates because those walls are pretty much knocked down now to where people forget that he's a prisoner.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, they're letting him have free range of their tax returns, knowing what they're doing, all the sneaky stuff. And I definitely like how they just normalize Andy a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, Andy was smart. He would write a letter a month to the state to expand the library. You know what I mean? And Norton said it is like, go ahead, write your letters. I'll even mail them out for you. And then they bribed him with, I guess, to shut him up was a $500 check. And then he goes, you know what? I'm going to write these letters once a week. And then they shipped him how many books, how many stuff, records. You know what I mean? And I think that's probably the next thing we're going to probably end up talking about right now.
Right. Because get this, not long afterwards, Brooks, the old librarian, threatens to kill another prisoner, Haywood, in order to avoid being paroled. Mm-hmm. Andy is able to talk him down, and Brooke is paroled. He goes to a halfway house, but finds it impossible to adjust to life outside of the prison. He eventually commits suicide when his friends suggest that he was crazy for doing so. Britt tells them that Brooks had obviously become institutionalized, insinuating condition to be a prisoner for the rest of his life and unable to adapt to the outside world. Red remarks, these walls are funny. First you hate them, then you get used to them. Enough time passes, you get so used to depending on them. And also, too, he said, outside of the world that I live in, if I got let go, I'm not an important person outside in this world or anything either. He goes, I'm the man who can get stuff. But outside these gates, I'm nobody. I'm just some schmo.
Yep.
Right.
And that's the truth. Seeing Brooks kind of, trying to kill to stay in prison, I get it. Because when you're institutionalized for such a long time, like Brooks and Red and them for 30, 40, 50 years, you only know one life. You know what I mean? And, Brooks goes on and as Andy's reading the letter as Brooks has written it, it's something kind of important in the movie. You know what I mean? He's like, the world has changed so much as I've seen it last. Cars are faster. He's talking about
something that you would read in a book or a magazine.
Yeah,
is what he said.
Yeah, and he sees the store. He goes, oh, maybe I should buy a gun and hold up the store and they'll send me back to prison. And then he gets on the chair and wrote Brooks was here and hung himself, which is, I guess, a part of the movie I wasn't expecting the first time I saw it. I wasn't expecting him to hang himself. I literally thought he bought the gun and shot himself, but I wasn't expecting a hanging.
But I think it was also a message to people that are going to be back over into where Brooks is. Either you can live like the way Brooks did,
right,
or you can live out your life and not be institutionalized and try to have some light inside that darkness that you have.
Mm-hmm.
And everything. So I think that was the willpower that Red had whenever he went into that halfway house too, of him looking up at Brooks's name, which we'll get to that later on.
Yeah.
But that's what I had thought whenever I first seen that though too. But I had a feeling that he was gonna die because of how old he is and him
Well,
getting sent back to prison. I'm like, yeah, they're not gonna put him back to prison or anything like that because of how old he is.
I
I
thought
don't
he would have
think.
died of natural causes, not by
Yeah,
hanging, though.
I gotcha. But yeah, then I like how also too whenever he gets paroled and everybody's like, "Man, you're nuts! I would kill to be out on the streets right now."
Hmm.
And here you are wanting to stay in prison. And then Red has to hold back a little bit. He goes, "Wait, he's not overreacting like you guys think he is. He's an important person, just as much as an important person as I am.
Right.
He's a person that collects books, likes reading, hands out books out in the world. He's
He's a
nobody."
nobody. Yeah, exactly. He's an important man in Shawshank.
Right.
So
And so,
that's hard though when you take away someone's freedom like that, but you become important in the inside because he ran the library and everything. So
exactly. But yeah, then like you mentioned before about Andy writing the letters, because even whenever he goes, well, Andy looks at the warden and goes, "Well, we need new books. We need new stuff here. Things are falling apart. Old National Geographic books that they have, and things
right,
like that." And the warden goes, "Well, you're more than welcome to write to different libraries if you choose to do so and stuff like that. But I don't think you're going to end up coming out on top on anything." He goes,
right.
"Okay." So then, after 6 years of writing letters, Andy receives $200 from the state for the library, along with a collection of old books and phonograph records. Though the state senate thinks this will be enough to get Andy to halt his letter writing campaign, he is undaunted and rebellious for his
Mhm.
efforts.
So for him to do that, and he gets it. Let me tell you, he gets all those books, the records. He really made a fine library anybody's seen in prison. And what was really cool is they made it the Brooks Hadlin Library. They named it after Brooks, which was very respectful by that team. I remember when you know the one guard goes, "Hey, get rid of everything before the captain sees this all this. I'm gonna go pinch a loaf." You know what I mean?
Right,
If anybody doesn't know what pinching a loaf is, you think about it. He went to go take a crap.
right.
So, at that part of the scene, he takes one of the records out that I guess he used to listen to when he in his free time, and he starts blasting it through the PA system.
Yeah, it's
Ballsy.
actually a copy of Mozart's The Marriage of Figaro.
Okay. Well, I should have known it was Mozart because he said, "Hey, Mozart, they let you tote that record player down," because I didn't think about that until now that you said it. So he locks the door. Everyone's trying to get in, and Hadley breaks the window, and Dufresne gets him, I guess, a month in the hole or a week in the hole, whatever it is. And he comes out eating lunch, and the best line goes, "Hey," he goes, "Couldn't you play some Hank Williams?" He go, "I'm sorry, they busted the door down before I was able to take any requests." So
Like he was a DJ for the day. It's like, okay,
yeah,
well, I only have one shot, one opportunity.
yeah.
I also have
So
mom spaghetti on my shirt, so I'm gonna go ahead and play you one record before I have to go back into the
so
pen.
so that was one of those quirky, funny one-liners of his. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And then they introduced the young gun coming into
Yep.
prison at that point. Um,
Well, but I want to also go back on something real
oh,
quick if you don't mind.
no, it's fine.
But yeah, it's where Red remarks that the voices of the woman in the intro made everyone feel free, if
Hmm.
only for a brief time. Outside the office, Dorn appears furious at the fact that of defiance and orders Andy to turn off the record player. Andy reaches for the needle arm at first, then turns the volume on the phonograph up. Like you said, the warden orders Haley to break into the office, and Andy is sent immediately to solitary confinement for 2 weeks. When he gets out, he tells his friends that the stretch was the easiest time he ever had done in the hole because he spent it thinking about Mozart's Figaro. When the other prisoners tell him how unlikely that he is, he replies that hope can sustain them. Red is not convinced and leaves bitter at the thought.
Yeah, I gotta give Andy credit on that one because he had the balls to do it.
Okay, and then now we get into this whole entire deal where Andy wants to help young prisoners to to basically help them with their education.
Get their GEDs or stuff,
Yeah.
just to really improve prison life for people who are going to get paroled, maybe.
Right.
That's
And
respectful.
I love that. I love that he did that. And with the enlarged library and more materials, Andy begins to teach those inmates who want to receive their high school diplomas. After Andy is able to secure a steady stream of funding from the various sources, the library is further renovated and named for books. Like you said, Warren and Norton profits on Andy's knowledge of accounting and devises a scheme whereby he puts a prison inmates to work in public projects, which he wins out bidding other contractors, prisoners, and cheap labor. Occasionally, he lets others get some contracts if they bribe him. Andy launders money for the warden by setting up many accounts in different banks, along with several investments using a fake identity named Randall Stevens. He shares the details only with his friend Red, nothing that he had to go to prison to learn how to be a criminal.
Second cousin to Harvey the Rat. I love that scene when he talks about that. He goes outside, and this is one of my favorite scenes. This is one of my top favorite scenes, my number one, I think. Andy goes, before we get into that, I'll tell you why I love this scene is because how Andy talks. He goes, in my outside life, I was a clean guy, everything by the rules. But here in prison, I learned how to do this. I learned how to be a crook. Go figure. You know what I mean? So he was explaining to Red, Randall Stevens, he's the man who did it. He's the one with the social security, the driver's license, and the account name, sir. And who is it? He goes, second cousin to Harvey the Rat. He's a phantom. I made him up. He goes, how the hell did you do that? And, that's something you have to respect because he learned it to do it in prison because he's laundering the money for the warden at that time. Like you said, at every single spot, there was a money laundering going on, and every shady deal Andy knew about, and there was a ledger.
Right, and then I like how Red goes, "Who is that?" He goes, "He's nobody. He doesn't exist.
He's a figment of my imagination."
Right, and so and I like how Red just has that little smirk on his face. He goes, "Okay, you're a clever SOB. I'll give you that."
Yep. And he goes, "I had to learn to be like that in prison. Go figure." But that's the thing. In that scenes, you see him teaching, and then you see the newcomer, Tommy.
Yeah, and okay, that's in 1965.
Yes.
A young prisoner named Tommy, played by Gil Billows, comes to Shawshank. Andy suggests that Tommy take up another line of work besides theft. The suggestion really gets to Tommy, and he works on earning out his high school diploma. Though Tommy is a good student, he is still frustrated when he takes the exam itself, crumbling it up and tossing it into the trash, and Andy retrieves it and sends it in.
So Mr. Rock and Roll, they call him. He makes fun of the old guys because now they're a little seasoned, I guess is the best way to put it. And he's like, "Hurry up, boys! You're slow as molasses. You're making me look bad, boys." And they called him Mr. Rock and Roll, and I like that. He was a fresh face to the group. You know what I mean? He's also spent a lot of time in prisons all over New England. He was talking about that stretch of time he's done everywhere, and I like Andy's line. He goes, "Huh? You might want to switch professor." He goes, "What's it to you, Capone?" Because he had the side hair. He goes, "Well, obviously, you're not a very good thief if you're getting busted." Right. And he was like, "Oh yeah, what are you in here?" And I'll say this explicitly. He goes, "Lawyer fucked me," like with a straight face. And that's something that was said in the beginning of the movie, which we didn't say, but it was one of the guy's lines, and he pays respect to all his friends at that lunch table because they helped him be who he is now,
right,
in prison, and they're friends, and that's something that's big. But also, Tommy takes a test and gets frustrated. I don't know. Listen, I'm not a good test taker too. I would have been in the same boat as him, but he's trying to do right because he's got a wife and kid on the outside.
Right. And basically, Tommy looks like an equivalent to Elvis because of the fact with the sideburns and stuff like that, which also resembles the rock and roll name that they gave him as well. And yeah, they are a lot more seasoned now. The prisoners are. Andy, of course, is already adapted into life now. And, there's also this because everybody over here is innocent. No, not one of us did anything wrong.
Right.
Because he goes, I didn't do it. He goes, of course you didn't. Everybody over here is innocent. So I like how even Andy's playing into it now.
Yeah, because that's what everyone says now. And Tommy was just a good fresh breath of fresh air. Unfortunately, he met his demise in part of the movie because he tells Andy something during his time in jail.
Right. Which winds up being like this. One day, Red tells Tommy about Andy's case. Tommy is visibly upset at hearing Andy's story and tells Andy and Red that he had a cellmate in another prison who boasted about killing a man who has a pro golfer at the country club he worked at, along with his lover. The woman's husband, a banker, had gone to prison for those murders. With this new information, Andy, full of hope, meets with the warden, expecting North to help him get another trial with Tommy as a witness. The reaction from Norton is completely contrary to what Andy hoped for. When Andy says emphatically that he would never reveal the money laundering schemes he set up for Norton over the years, the warden becomes furious and orders him to solitary for a month. The warden later meets with Tommy alone and asks him if he'll testify on Andy's behalf. Tommy enthusiastically agrees, and the warden has him shot dead by Hadley.
So that scene escalated so much when Tommy explains that to Red, and then you see Andy listening to it, and you see the flashbacks of this guy. You know what I mean? It makes you wonder, did he kill him? Did he find the gun and kill them? Because, again, the gun was never found, to be honest with you.
I'm thinking that it was just a coincidental thing where basically Andy being there at the right time at the wrong time, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Basically being there at the wrong time and just happens to be coincidental. I'm thinking somebody had the same type of gun that Andy happened to have, and that's what happened.
It could have been. So as he explains to the warden that he wants to get a retrial and everything, he goes, how can you be so obtuse? Like, how can you be so stupid? How can you not believe this? You know what I mean? And he send Andy back, and it's just one of those things. Andy is fighting for his life. And then he meets with Tommy, has a smoke, and then Tommy should have known something was up because the warden is meeting him outside the prison gate. You know what I mean? And
right.
he offers him
But don't forget, this guy also been busted like 4 or 5 times for crime, so he's not very streetwise.
True, but he should have taken a freaking hint when you're outside the freaking fence.
That's true.
You know what I mean? And then Warden is smoking a cigarette with Tommy, and they talked, and he just gives him a look, and Hallie shoots the guy dead. And
right. And that broke my heart. That scene breaks my heart.
Yeah, that was a tough scene watching that. It was a tough scene because we all liked them, and it's one of those things.
That scene broke my heart. It also breaks Andy to the point where he's like, well, damn, I finally have someone to prove my innocence to.
Yeah.
And now I can't because now the person who was going to testify is now dead. The only reason why I'm even in here now is because I was falsely victim of a crime that he didn't commit at all. And he is actually innocent. And that pisses him off even more. And then on top of that, you have Hadley who wants him in prison because of the fact that it's benefiting him for his money laundering scheme. If Andy wouldn't have helped him, I think, during that time, he might have had a 50-50 shot of maybe Hadley helping him.
I don't think that Hadley would have helped him. Neither would Norton. I think they would have stuck to the guns the way that was because that's what they were doing. When you are doing shady crap in a prison, or it doesn't even matter if it's in prison, you're at work or something, you're never going to change. So Norton got greedy. So did Hadley. They liked what they were getting on the side, and and you shoot the one thing. Now this is where. Now Andy's breaking down everything. The guy that might have killed his ex-wife in the cheating golf pro. Tommy's death. Brooks Hadley's death. Red getting not paroled the last couple of times. This all now is playing in his head like he needs to get the hell out of Shawshank. And this is where I think we get into the next scene already, is seeing Andy try to break out of prison. Now, that's where the little rock hammer we talked about in the beginning of the show, the little rock hammer. The joke was it'd take him 100 years to break out of prison with that little thing. So what happens? He starts carving his name behind the poster of the inside the prison wall. And what do you know? It's soapstone. Soapstone is a cheap ass plaster. So what does he do? Little by little, he starts scraping the wall and making the circle. And then as Red's explaining this, he said, Andy loved, you know what Andy loved doing? Was toting his wool on the prison playgrounds, leaving the dirt and everything right there and all that. Because Andy had enough. The death of Tommy broke his back.
Right. Like enough is enough with this gaming, the getting away with stuff,
the murders
and everything. He's like, I had enough. I'm an innocent man. I should not be here now that I know my innocence. So what's the point of me being here? I wasted all my life here since the 1940s, and now here I am in the 1965 era, and here I am doing things that prisoners do whenever I shouldn't even be here. I'm done.
So he plans his escape, and not everyone's realizing. And Red said something. He goes, something's wrong with Andy. I'm really worried about him. It's like, oh, and forgot the Haywood. That's the guy's name. Yeah. Haywood goes, oh shoot, I gave him like 2 feet of rope, or 2 or 3 feet of rope. It's like, you dumbass. Like, why would you do that? Because now they think Andy's hanging himself, not realizing, not even Ren knew he was thinking about Prison Break. So during those scenes, you see Andy get everything ready. So he had something in his back, the papers and a book, which AKA was the Bible.
Yep.
And for anybody who's not seen this movie, I'm sorry, we're going to ruin the ending.
Well, it's been out since 30. It's been 30 years, so I think
you'd be surprised how many people have not seen this movie yet.
Sure.
But again, this is a review. We have to talk about it. So I remember what Warren said, hey, lickety split, I want to go home. I got a fun, I got somewhere to be with the wife, you know what I mean? And he's telling Andy what to do. So Andy, when he goes back into his office, Andy does the switch for the ledger, the papers, everything with his Bible, with some other paperwork. So he gives it to the Warren, he puts it in, and then he goes, all right, get my suits to the laundry and tell him, don't ever overstarch my shirts. If not, they're going to have to deal with me. So, Red's saying, yes, Andy shrubbed those shoes to a high shine. And it makes you wonder why but you don't think about it. Why is he looking at the suits?
Right.
Is he sizing himself up for it? We didn't know at that point. So as he's leaving, it's kind of funny. His shoulders are a little bit more square. And I didn't take notice that he had the suit on.
I didn't know that either. I didn't, to be honest with you, until like after the reveal.
Right.
I was just so glued into it. But even whenever they do like the half shot of not showing his feet either.
Yes. And, how many people look at someone's shoes?
No one.
Nobody. So that next morning, for breakfast, Dufresne, get your ass out of here before I'll thump your head with something. You know what I mean? And he's not coming out. The one big guard goes up and like, oh shit, we're in trouble. Dufresne breaks out. And he went through a river of shit is the best way to put it.
That's actually the best way to put it, because that's how Red put it. He goes, he climbed through 10 feet of shit just to get out of prison.
500 yards.
500 yards out. And I thought that was just awesome, because then the dogs can't even track him. Basically, the only time that they can track him is like in the water area.
Yes. So when they tracked him there, they found his prison shirt, the soap, and the nub of the rock hammer.
I like the black and white photo of them taking the picture of the nub. That's what.
It's like, what the?
But also too, the other thing I like is the camera angle. The way the camera angle is whenever he's climbing through the wall.
Mm-hmm.
I love the camera angle, how it's turning to its side.
Yeah, they did it. Like I said, they did a fantastic job.
That was fantastic.
But the best was like this was when It's like, oh, when Norton goes, where the hell? Dufresne was here at Lights Out. Where the hell? I don't know, sir. Don't say that to me. He goes, go find him now. Not before breakfast, not after breakfast, right now. And then he brings Red and he goes, you two are thick as thieves. You guys, you must have known something. Like, honest, Warren, honest to God. It's like, oh my God, it's a miracle. Hallelujah. And he starts throwing the rocks, his rock figures. And my favorite is like, what about you, Fudgy, you little cute cupcake? You got anything to say, Fuzzy Bridges? And he throws a rock and then you hear doom, and then you hear the metal. They're like, what the hell? And Red's face was priceless. Because
that's what I wanted to talk about was like Red's face, because Red is just as shocked as they were. So that also shows you too that Red doesn't have a clue of what's going on. They're just as surprised as they are.
So it's funny because Red was like this, like, what the hell? Everyone was like, what the hell? And then you hear the alarms going off. So in Red, when that's happening, Red talks about Andy visiting a dozen banks that day, totaling $300,000 of Norton's money. And it's kind of funny because, he goes in with the right identification, Randall Stevens. And one of my favorite things is like, oh, can you please add this to your outgoing mail? Like nonchalantly.
Right.
And he sends it to the news people and he reads it and he talks about, I guess, the money laundering, the murder, and then you hear the police sirens, and then you see Norton like slam his hand down reading the cover. It's like, holy shit. And then he goes right to the shoes, realizing it's Andy's shoes. And like Red said, it's like, how many times do you look at a man's shoes as they pan down to his shoes walking, you don't
out of the prison.
In the prison, you know what I mean? Like, you just don't realize that stuff. And I they said how they got arrested, and he was crying like a little baby. I wish I would have seen that. And then Norton comes up, and they're knocking on his door. They have a rookie cop right there trying to open the door, doesn't even know the key, and then he blows his brains out. Now, I really want to know what his last final thoughts were before that bullet went through his head too, as Red says it. Like, how the hell did Andy do it? And it's amazing because that's a scene that when you look at it, you're like, wow, how did he do that? How the hell did he climb through all that crap? The river of shit, the river, get showered, cleaned up wearing the suit, going to collect to a dozen banks to collect over $300,000, dude, severance pay for all those years in jail. I mean, that's a great haul. And Red's still in prison after that.
Exactly.
And they're still talking about Andy, like all the stuff that they did. Haywood was talking about when they got the beers, like, he got us the beers, and they're all laughing because they were all good memories of Andy. And Andy gets a letter, a postcard, not a letter. I take that back.
Yeah, he got a postcard, unmarked. That's how he knew that it was Andy, because remember, Andy winds up telling him where he's going to be at and everything, and what to expect. So that like, was right.
Fort Hancock, Texas. That's where he crossed the border. As he said, he goes, I could see my friend in his car with the wind blowing in his hair, and and all that stuff down in Mexico. Even though I thought Mexico wasn't a traditional country, but I could be wrong. Red then gets paroled, and then Red does a whole different tactic. He goes, Sonny, I don't give a rat's ass, and he gets paroled. So
right, because all that time, okay, we didn't talk about this, but we will a little bit here, because remember, when Red is trying to get paroled, he just tells him what they want him to wants to hear. Because I've been fine. I've been doing everything I need to do out of prison and stuff like that. I think that prison has changed me. Got rejected twice for trying to get into the heads of the parole board. Mm-hmm. Then he's like, you know what? Screw it. I've already spent half my life here. Do whatever you want with me. I'm just done. And at that point, it's like in the 1960, I think, want to say That was in 1965 or somewhere around that area.
Something like that, yeah. It was
Yeah.
like 1965, 1967, something like
I
that. It
want
was
to say
in the,
67.
yeah,
Yeah.
something like that is in the air. And then as he's talking about it, he gets released and he goes to the halfway house and he ends up being in the same room where Red stayed. So he goes to work at the prison at the supermarket where Hadley worked, not Hadley, Haywood, Brooks Hadlin worked.
Yep, Brooks worked.
And it was kind of funny. He's like, he goes, double bang, your man didn't double bang. Karen in 1967 at that point. You mean seriously double bangs? I would have just loved to throw in a can of pineapple juice at her head.
Same.
Just for saying that. So, he gets done bagging the materials and he said, hey, boss, restroom break. Again, that just shows you how long he was in prison, institutionalized. And it's kind of funny as he's talking and he's walking back to, I guess, the apartment, you know what I mean? The halfway house. He stops at the same store as Brooks did. And they're showing the guns and the compasses. So he said, and there was one part where as he writes, Red was too, Red was here too, whatever he wrote. He said, I'm gonna break the law for a second time ever. I'm gonna be guilty of breaking the law. He goes, I'm gonna break my parole. And he goes to the secret. Well, before that, let me reverse that a little bit. Before he goes down, he remembers something, and he remembers what Andy said. There's a big black block. There's a tree. I made love to my wife there. And that's the day. That's where I got engaged. Look for an abnormal rock there. There will be something for you when you get out of prison. And Red does that trip. He got the compass to find that tree. He finds that rock, which was a black quartz rock that doesn't belong there. And What does he find? It was a tin of the Titanic. In that tin, he finds a shitload of money and a letter to Red. He goes, I could use a man like you to get things from time to time. You remember, and he says St. John went something, I can't remember now how to pronounce it, but it was like some kind of a word that he says. And he gets up, he says, screw this, I'm gone. And that's where he talks about how he breaks the law a second time ever. He's guilty of breaking the law. And it was like, listen, they're not going to put up any roadblocks for an old crook like me.
No. Then he takes the bus to Fort Hancock, where he crosses into Mexico.
Yep. And then I'm trying to figure out what Andy's doing in Mexico. So he's shaving a boat from its old paint that's deserted there. Looks like the boat had a hole in the hull. And it makes me wonder, did he buy a hotel or something in Mexico? Because he's looking for a boat, to fix up. It makes you wonder. And they see each other. It's like the happiest day of their lives. They're giving hugs and kisses. Who knows what else they do? And, and that's the end of the movie.
Right.
Now,
I like how it opens up to interpretation on what we think happened with the two of them and stuff like that. It's just about friendship.
Yeah.
But remember this, though. He did say to Red that he's going to build a boat and go and basically try and catch sharks.
Oh, that's right. That's right. He did say it. Yeah. So he found a boat that's laying there. He's going to go catch a shark now.
So this is where we get our sequel to Jaws. I'm playing.
Should have been. That would have. Excuse me. That would have been hilarious.
Right. But anyways, this is hands down one of my favorite movies. I'm glad that we got a chance to review this film.
This
movie still holds up today. I mean, this is a perfect movie. If I could actually say this is a perfect movie. This is based off of a Stephen King novella. Mm-hmm. And also too, Red was originally supposed to be a white Irishman, and then Morgan Freeman tries out for it and winds up getting the role of Red, which is perfect.
And it's kind of funny. You know what he does say? It was a tip of the hat to the Irishman. He goes, why they call you Red? It's because I'm Irish. So it's kind of funny. Very underrated movie. Should have gotten more Academy Awards than it did. No thanks to Tom Hanks and Forrest Gump that year. But this movie flew under the radar because of Forrest Gump attention. Everybody wanted his shoes, his Gump, Bubba Gump shrimps. That's what they got. But
Exactly.
That's not what we got out of this movie. I think it would, if this movie was nominated for, should have been Best Actor and Supporting Actor, should have been Oscar noms for Tim Robbins and Morgan Freeman in this movie. Should have been up there for nomination for Best Movie of the Year with Forrest Gump. Granted, Gump should have won the Movie of the Year, but I think Tim Robbins and Tom Hanks, I would have given this movie to Tim Robbins over Tom Hanks as Forrest Gump.
Same here.
Listen, I love Forrest Gump. Don't get me wrong. Tom Hanks was excellent in that movie. But I think a prison movie over a man with special needs, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but something about this should have, or
should have gravitated more into more
the categories.
Right.
Best supporting cast, best supporting actor, definitely Morgan Freeman should have been nominated.
As a best supporting actor. Yep.
Yes. And best film in this movie should have been in there. Out of those three, one of them should have won one of the awards. Either Tim Robbins winning for best actor over Tom Hanks, or Morgan Freeman should have won best supporting actor. And he was never nominated for this movie, which I think he should have.
Most definitely. So with that being said, guys, go on ahead, follow Sleevie G. Go on ahead, subscribe over to his channel. He has a great podcast. I definitely recommend it. I was on it, like he said, at the very beginning of the show. I also have Rossi coming in probably Tuesday doing a review. I think we're doing some stuff over there. I have to check with her as far as scheduling goes. On the 29th, though, I do have two shows back-to-back. One's going to be live. The other one's not going to be live. One's just for audio-only podcast because I'm changing things up a little bit. So if you want to catch our Goonies review, that's going to be for the audio-only podcast. So right after the Crichton Hobbs interview that I'm doing with the cast from Blinded by Tragedy on the 29th of May, we're going to, at 8 o'clock Central Time, 9 o'clock Eastern Time, right after that, I'm going to be recording our Goonies review. You guys voted for it. That's what we do here at Movie Lovers Tonight. We do movies that you want us to review. So I ended up, believe it or not, you guys actually ended up making a tie for us because it was RoboCop and it was also the Goonies. So guess what? We filled RoboCop already, and now we're doing Goonies for you guys.
Sean loves sloth.
Exactly. So anyways, thank you so much, Gomez. It's a privilege, as always, to be able to do this with you. And
thank you.
You're very welcome. And, of course, all his links and everything will be in the show notes below for you guys to click on. Smash that like button. Show him some love over there. And don't forget to go ahead and like this video as well. And always, until next time, bye-bye.